Welcome to the Conscious Living Podcast, conversations to educate, empower, and enlighten our world. An uplifting and inspiring series of conversations and talks with your host, Jackie Woodside. We are educating minds, empowering lives, and enlightening souls to create a world where love prevails. In this engaging podcast, we deliver exciting, positive, transformative talks and teachings designed to elevate your life. Now, let's join our host, Jackie Woodside, for this week's session.
Hi, everybody. Jackie Woodside here again for another extraordinary episode of the Conscious Living Podcast, where here we seek to educate, empower, and enlighten our world. Today, I'm so pleased to bring you a lifestyle design expert. Desha Peacock from Vermont up in New England in the United States will be talking to us today about how to bring more consciousness, to live more consciously in how you create your path with your career and your business, what she is an expert at doing for herself and helping others do. So Desha is a lifestyle design consultant, coach, and expert, and she's also a published author. So Desha, thank you so much for being with us. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit more about yourself so that they can get to know you?
Oh, well, thank you so much, Jackie. That was a beautiful introduction. And like you said, I kind of invented my career title, what I go by as a lifestyle design coach and also small business coach. And I'm sure we could add titles to that. Like you said, I'm an author. I like to lead retreats and digital course creator and all kinds of stuff. But I guess you could sum it up as a lifestyle design coach. And, one of my mantras is, or I guess one of my mission statements is to help women make money doing work they love. Nice. And it's really got to be the combo for me. So it's not just about money, like you could just kind of do anything for money. Mm-hmm. But for me, it's really important that is paired with connecting with your purpose, connecting with meaning, doing something that is meaningful to you in your life. And for me, my sweet spot, that's the name of my business, is Sweet Spot Style. For me, and you can define sweet spot in lots of different ways, right? It's nice. Two things coming together that feels really great. So for me, the sweet spot is, doing work that I love and making money at it. So I've done things that I've loved and didn't make money. I've done a lot of things for money that I didn't love. And so it took me a really long time. I went through 40 different jobs before I finally decided I'm an entrepreneur. That's what I'm supposed to do. And so I invented this title and this career path based on my unique values, desires, and personality so that I could feel happy in my work while also achieving the things that I need financially to live the life that I desire.
Beautiful. Love it. Congratulations on that. 40 different jobs and businesses. That's an accomplishment.
That's a lot of stuff. Well, I'm also, I don't know if you're into like personality tests, but the Myers-Briggs, like ENFP, I don't know if you're into human design, but it's the, what is it called? Basically the multi-passionate person who's really into lots of different things.
Beautiful. I saw that on your website, actually, multi-passionate entrepreneurs. I love that. I definitely fit into that category for sure, but I have not accomplished 40 different career paths before landing on this one. Well, that's great. So let's dive in a little bit. So, the goal of the Conscious Living Podcast is to educate, empower, and enlighten our world. And you share that passion, you share that value, which I appreciate. And you have a unique take on it and helping women, I think, particularly define a career path that, as you said, is the sweet spot of making money and expressing their true self, their highest self, their multi-passions. So dive into that a little bit more. Before you even tell us kind of what your process is, tell us a little bit about what led you to that and why you think that's important.
Well, I think that, everybody's different of what they hope to achieve in their life. So it's, what I teach is not for everybody because somebody might really, really have a great desire to be an amazing mother. And that is their thing, or somebody else may really, 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 really just want to focus on the relationships. And for me, of course, it's those things as well. But the overarching concern from the time I was little is sort of like, what is my occupation? What am I supposed to do? Why am I here on earth? And that is all very, very much connected to me in my work. And so that's why it's so important to me. And so, I attract people who are also interested in that. So for someone who's like, it's important to me that I'm spending a lot of time, we all spend a lot of time doing our work, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for me, it's really important that I'm using that time effectively towards my purpose. And so for people who have that value, that's who this is for. Now, in addition to that, I'm also multi-passionate, as we talked about. So I also attract other multi-passionate people who are often have a lot of ideas and a lot of things going on, but their challenge is that it's hard for them to sometimes focus.
Yeah.
And what they create for themselves is what I call brain fog. So they go into this spinning, their ideas are spinning in their head, and they have their hands in lots of different things. And so it's hard to see their accomplishments because they're sort of dabbling in so many things. So what I like to say is you can do everything in your life. You just can't do it all at once. Let's focus in and let's figure out what it is that you could do right now.
Yeah.
Kind of project-based or in seasons, and if we can figure out a theme for this, I call it an umbrella brand. If you have an ideal client and you have an overarching mission statement, if you have those two things, you can have an umbrella brand, and you can fit several different passions under that umbrella brand.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that will help you move faster through this process, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I love what you're saying about multi-passionate entrepreneurs, because it almost feels like there's an explosion of that in our world, even starting pre-COVID, but certainly post-COVID, the Great Resignation, so many people really pursuing the path of entrepreneurship, particularly, I think, solopreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
It really feels like we're in some kind of an evolutionary leap where people have more permission to integrate their passion and their profit into one thing. And I think that's so important for people to understand. And, I'm also a coach. And what I hear a lot of times from my clients is I really want to do this, but I'm so afraid. Well, I've got to earn a living. How do I do this? So how do you help people with that question? I'm sure you hear that from your clients as well. Often it's people who have established careers. They're already successful at what they're doing. They're making a decent living, but they're not fulfilled, right? So they have this calling, if you will. So how do you help people address that?
Oh, I love that question. That's so practical and so good. So it depends on their risk tolerance.
The risk tolerance, right.
Right.
I'll just tell you what I did. I twice. Once I quit a well-paying job where I was well-respected, cut off my income stream, went into doing coaching, speaking, and I failed back in the 90s, did not make enough money to support myself, but I was a clinician. So I had a small private practice. I built that up and then was able to support myself. And then I did it again, I don't know, 10 or 12 years later. I closed my psychotherapy practice to go back at this again, to be a speaker, coach, trainer. And here I am, second time around, I didn't. So when you say risk tolerance, people would look at me like, oh my God, people would say, you're so brave. And I'd be like, no, I think I'm just so stupid. And I'll joke with people. I was like, don't do what I did. Don't cut off your income stream to just throw yourself in this next thing. So yeah, I appreciate what you're saying about your risk tolerance. I guess, I don't know. I think I had more faith than fear. And it really is that, that balance of faith and fear when facing those kinds of decisions.
Well, and I think that is just the perfect analogy, the balance of faith and fear along with risk, because that's just the first time that you're going to experience that feeling of fear, but then you're going to experience it over and over and over again in your business, right? Because as entrepreneurs, as business owners, especially when your business is tied to what you love, you're constantly going to be taking risks, right? Yeah. And so you have to almost build up that risk muscle. And hopefully that muscle grows. And as you experience failures, you get stronger. And as you experience successes, you gain more confidence. Right. So it's all like, I just think that, starting your business, if that's what you're into, is really the greatest tool for personal development, because you will be knocked around and you will be challenged, and you really have to dig deep to really gain that resilience that you need to make it. Absolutely. You've been doing this for, you said, 30 years. So, you've obviously figured it out, but that's a really long time to do this type of work and continue on the game, right?
Absolutely. And there we had a little bit of a froze there. Yeah, absolutely. 30 years is a long time. Although I wouldn't say I have it figured out. I feel like because the field itself is changing so fast, it is a constant process of figuring it out, both in terms of the technology and the trends in the field, and in terms of who I am, what phase of life I'm in, what my current passions are. So it's definitely, being a multi-passionate entrepreneur is definitely like a constant process of figuring it out. Do you find that with your clients as well?
Oh, yeah, I definitely do. And I find that with myself. And so I think that sometimes, like, I believe in intention and manifestation, right? So it's like, okay, what's my desire? That's just the first thing. It's like, what do I really, really want? And sometimes what I've noticed is, like, we have this super big desire and we're like, I want this, I want this, I want this. I'm working towards this. But the universe sometimes by the time you get it, you're like, well, I don't even care about that anymore, or this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And so I like to remind people, like, it's okay to change your mind about what you want. Like, what is it that you want now in your life? Mm-hmm. And I just really think that's an important question for us all to ponder, because I feel like in the online world, we're taught that we need to niche, so whereas a lot of people are starting businesses now, and even more so during this COVID era, still the online marketing world is pick one thing and be an expert. Pick one thing, be an expert, and just do that. And that's what we're taught. So it's like, well, what if you do that, but then you change your mind and you're not interested in the topic? Or does that mean you're a failure? So I like to say, like, it's okay to be yourself. And if you're the type of person who loves to do one thing forever, great. But if you're not that type of person, if you're the type of person who really likes to do lots of different things, that's okay. And here's a model for that, which I feel like we don't see a lot of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Here's a model for that. I think it is so important for people to look around and see models. But I also like, this question of what do I want? It's kind of tricky. And I know you work with your clients around this, Desha, but the question of what you want when you're not living consciously, can so easily be spoon-fed to us by the externals in our world. Like before we hit record, you were saying, it used to be having a 6-figure online business, and now it's a 7- and 8-figure business. And, people go pursuing that because it's what they see out there. But is that really what my calling is? Is that really what my desire is? You can't have a 7- and 8-figure business without having a team to help support it. So, are you somebody that wants to manage a team and run a team? Or do you really like the kind of smaller, simple business that gives you a good income, but you're not managing like a big digital marketing enterprise as well as running your business? So there's so many questions, and I do like to have people think not just about what they want, but who am I? What do I want, and who am I that wants to be expressed and birthed into the world? So I know you talked about people knowing their values as a part of this, and I think that's just so important, knowing who they are, what they value, what their mission is, what their purpose is, and stay aligned with that. That to me is the foundation of conscious business. And I love that you're an expert in that. It's just fantastic.
Well, you hit it on the head. That's everything that's part of my brand and part of my mission. And, I think that the way that I help clients figure that out, because sometimes you don't know all of those things,
Right.
unless you've been like you and I have been thinking and talking about this for years. But
Right.
somebody maybe who hasn't been thinking about that because they haven't been told they can. It's like, follow this path and do this thing. And there's as we talked about, there's so much influence. But so the way that I like to kind of like direct people is to think about a lifestyle intention and to just write out the things that they know that they do want. And sometimes it can help to think about the things you don't want, but you don't write that in your lifestyle intention. You just write it in the present, and you write in the positive. So this is what I did when I first started my business. And instead, I also think like with intention is different from goals, right? So it's like, I used to work in career development. And here, I'm going to veer off track for 1 second, and I'm going to bring it back to lifestyle intention. But, I would meet with people and they'd say, I want to do this thing. I want this particular job. And I'd be like, okay, let's write out the resume. Let's get the cover letter. Let's get your references. And then they'd get the job. And then 2 years later, they'd come back to my office. And can you help me with my resume? I'm like, wait a second. I helped you get that dream job. What are you talking about? And I'm like, oh, it was terrible. I hated it. And that happened quite a bit.
Wow.
And so I started to discover like, oh, like, it's we think that one certain thing is going to make us happy, but then I've experienced this myself, but then it actually doesn't. So what's up with that? And like, how can we like pursue goals if we're scared that once we get them, that's not actually going to be the thing, right? So instead of saying a goal, I like to say an intention based off your core desired feelings.
Nice.
So, like I want to feel financially abundant. Instead of saying like, I want this particular job, I want to write for this magazine. It's like, no, I want to feel valued in my work. I want to feel recognized in my work. I want work that's meaningful, creative, fun. If you're working with people who aren't that inspiring, I work with people who are inspiring, who respect me, and then you write that out in your lifestyle intention. And just focus on that and attract that to you, as well as taking actions, the actions that you think will lead you to that. And then as opportunities come, then you go back to your lifestyle intention and you say, do I think that if I do this thing, it will give me this feeling? And more move towards that feeling. And the feeling can also be your values and external ways that you want to experience the world. Like in mine, I have that I want to be surrounded by beauty, and that I want to have opportunities to travel to beautiful places, and that I get to make decisions based off my intuition rather than my pocketbook, right?
Oh, nice. You have that written as a lifestyle intention.
Yes, I do.
That's beautiful. Say a little bit more about that. That interests me. What led you to wanting to be guided by your intuition rather than your pocketbook?
Well, it was because the way I was raised, right? So I was raised in a household where we had enough, but never extra. And I grew up in Arkansas, and we lived in a little duplex apartment our whole lives. But my dad was a big dreamer. And so he would drive us around these neighborhoods and, like fantasize about living in these mansions. But then we'd come home to our like duplex where we like, didn't have a phone for a little while and that kind of thing. And so I was very interested in living a different lifestyle, but I just couldn't as a child because I didn't have access to that, right? And so from early on, there was a deep desire for a certain type of way of living, and I did not want to be in lack, right? I did not want to have to worry about money. So as I got older, I discovered I had a deep desire to explore the world. And by going outside of my little state of Arkansas, which we never did, it opened up a whole new world to me. And it felt like a new perspective and energy and excitement, and just changed me completely. When I was doing it in college, it was because, I got scholarships and I had like, pennies to my name. So I'd be like, sitting like in Nice across from the Mediterranean, nibbling on like a baguette, looking across and looking at people sitting in the cafes having their, 4-course meals and wine. And I'd be like, I want to do that someday. But I was happy enough just to be there.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like, let's evolve, like I want to be able to do the things that I want to do in my life, which require money.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to do that through my intuition of how I feel like. So it's like, I live in Vermont, so I don't like the winter. So I want to go to Mexico. Well, I don't want to have to be like, well, do we have enough money for me to do that? And how are we going to do that financially? And where am I going to stay? And I have to stay in a crappy place. No, I want to stay in a beautiful place.
Yeah.
I want to fly over there. I want to do my thing.
Good.
And so that's where that comes from.
That's great. I love it. And how do you tap into your intuition? Different people teach different things about that. What's your process? And how do you know that you're aligned with that intuitive hit?
I think it's really hard for in some ways, because like for me, I'm an Aries, so that's the ram and that's the head. So I'm very much in my head,
Nice.
like I like to, and we're told to make decisions based off logic. Like we've never been taught in school to tap into our heart to make a decision, right? Like you don't say that in school. It's like, okay, here's the logic. Here's how to think critically. That's all in your head. So it's taken me a very long time to try to tap into my heart and get information from my heart and my body. And so the way that I can do that for myself is looking at my energy. So it's like, when I'm doing a certain thing, do I feel energy or does it take my energy? And that's how I can tell.
Yeah.
And so that's what I teach my clients too. Also, being quiet is really an amazing thing. Like I meditate every single day. And so I wake up and I have a habit now, a ritual. So I wake up and I meditate for 15 minutes. And every once in a while, like the other day, I was meditating and I have a 3-part meditation. And the third part is asking for clarity and guidance. And as I was meditating, like, please show me the way, help me to be in my higher purpose. I'm open to do the work you want me to do. Divine Spirit, just guide me. And I heard like a message, just 3 words, like, is it 3 words? 4? You should travel. You should travel. 3 words. You should travel. And I was like, whoa, where did that come from? Like, that was so clear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just this message. And I've heard it a few times in my life where I've walked into like this gorgeous house in Mexico and I had this message that said, it was almost like coming down from like the heavens into my whole spirit. And it was like, retreat here. So I just knew retreat was going to be in this particular house. Now, that's pretty rare that I get those like verbal messages. But most of the time it's the struggle. Most of the time it's like, is this the right thing or is this not the right thing? But that's when I start to get in my head,
Yeah.
So it's getting out of your head. And sometimes you just can't wait for an answer and you just have to try things and see. Like you said, like you have to be willing to experience failure. And when you experience that failure, you're like, okay, well, that didn't work.
Embrace it. It's not failure. It's just one step along the journey. So I love what you're saying about following your intuition. First of all, get quiet. Secondly, make it a regular practice. Thirdly, follow your energy. Feel when that heaviness, like, oh, I don't like this, versus the light expansiveness of openness and moving toward that. So really following your energy. And then fourth, really listening to what messages you get, whether they're images or words or heart-centered feelings that and the fifth thing that you said, which was so brilliant, ask to be divinely guided. And then wait for that instruction and direction. Being a multi-passionate entrepreneur is the path of the heart, and it is the path of faith rather than fear. I mean, not that the fear's not there. Every time I do something new or launch something new, or there is that fear of will it be okay? Will people like it? Will I be criticized? Will it be successful? Blah 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 blah. I've just learned to not empower that voice of fear. And it sounds like you're saying a very similar thing that people, if you're waiting for the fear to disappear, you'll probably never take the action.
Oh, definitely. You know, the fear is there. And like you said, this is a process. It's for me too. And for my clients, I see it every day. It's you have something that you want to pursue, you go through the process, you try it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You have to tweak it. And then you try it again and you try it again. And sometimes you'll have great success and sometimes you won't. And the question is like, then what do you do about it? You know,
Right.
and you keep going and then you get better and better and better at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this has been an extraordinary conversation, Desha. Thank you so much for your wisdom and your heart, the work you're doing in the world, helping women consciously align their passion and their profit and their purpose. You know, what an extraordinary business that you've created. And, you know, I also saw on your website, you help people create beautiful spaces for their work and their home. You know what, you know, I see your multi-passion in everything that you do. So thank you so much for being here with us on the Conscious Living podcast. How can people find you to get in touch with you and follow your work?
Well, they can go to my website. It's sweetspotstyle.com. And I'm on Instagram a lot, and that's my name, Desha, Desha, Peacock, like the bird.
All right, fabulous. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Jackie. It's been a pleasure.